It's Oscar-worthy. Moving on, during the early stages of the broadcast, the tension is repeatedly broken by actor-comedian Craig Charles, who is playing an elevated version of himself, and in the context of the broadcast, is tasked with interviewing residents of Fox Hill Drive, while Parkinson handles calls and guests in the studio, and Green interacts with the family. While Charles himself doesn't appear to be taking anything seriously, he is responsible for one of the earliest scares in the broadcast, leaping out of a cupboard wearing a Halloween mask to scare Green as she initially explores the early home. There's also a moment later in the broadcast where Charles is purportedly interviewing a man who tried to exorcise the house, where you can just about see Ferrari in full Mr. Pipes get-up standing in the distance observing the cast and crew. In fact, throughout the broadcast, Ferrari can be seen multiple times if you watch closely enough. For example, in one shot he can be seen in the reflection of a glass door, and in another he can be spotted emerging from the background of the studio as Pascoe and Parkinson listen to the sounds of guttural screaming purportedly captured in the early home. This was done to suggest that Mr. Pipes could be summoned by replaying the sounds of his torturous screams out loud, which millions of televisions across Britain were now doing inadvertently. Back to the broadcast, it largely spends the next few minutes cutting between the studio, the house, and Charles, and we learn that Mr. Pipes seems to have a special interest in Suzanne, with the show noting how she had on multiple occasions awoken to find mysteriously unexplained scratches and contusions on her face. As this is discussed, a photo of Suzanne with such injuries is shown on screen. For the curious, the photo was genuine and made by having a member of the BBC's own special effects department make up Michelle Wesson as if she'd been repeatedly scratched about the face. After a few more minutes, both girls asked to be put to bed, which is when the show starts to get really weird. You see, up to this point in the broadcast, all of the spooky goings-on were being reported on second-hand. However, after the girls go to bed, a bunch of bizarre, unexplainable things happen that, again, the show presents as being absolutely real. For starters, the crew notes that the house is inexplicably freezing cold despite the abundance of people and camera equipment present. Temperature gauging equipment that was jury-rigged to always show a specific lower reading is then presented to sell this as genuine, as the hosts explain that a sudden, inexplicable feeling of cold is a telltale sign that somewhere is absolutely totally mega haunted. A reminder, this show aired on Halloween, and British houses are notoriously drafty, so you could probably imagine how those watching at home, growing increasingly invested in the narrative, felt upon hearing that. Then, a bunch of random stains appear in the living room, seemingly caused by a ghost, since nobody was in the room at the time, and unlike a regular spill or leak, the stains are perfectly round. This is just not right. After this, loud scratching, and of course, banging can be heard from upstairs.